All right, hey everybody, welcome to FreeChinaPod, episode 39. We back up in this bish. So,
That's what
all
you
right,
think.
that's what I know. Ari and I were just talking about a little trolls, one of our favorite topics. You know, kind of what we do. The Umaudong 50 Cent Army.
Wow, dumb.
Yeah, the good ones. And what's his name? Bob McNutt. I mean, all the good
Good
stuff.
old Bob McNutt. Good American. Patriot. Ex-soldier.
We've had that's one thing I'll say is like I don't get surprisingly for like how bad of a reputation Twitter has for trolls. Maybe it's because of the people I follow and like it's so inter just like introspective. I guess I don't usually get a lot of
Twitter, I
trolls.
think, is different. I think that China doesn't... Because with Twitter, you have to have, like, real engagements and, like, follow up and shit. I feel
Yeah.
like they'll probably focus on other things, man. YouTube is huge, because I know the, like, downvote videos that are, like, anti-China and shit, they can get these videos basically taken down. If there's too many downvotes, nobody will watch this shit.
Yeah, you can get stuff like it's a lot easier to get stuff demonetized on YouTube, whereas Twitter is not
See?
monetized at all. So it makes sense.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do, man. So if you really want to find, if you want to find really active trolls, just go on YouTube and look for any video posted like recently that has to do with China, anything to do with China or Huawei, and
Yeah, which
the
are
top
one and the same.
yes, the top 100 comments, everything with like these 3,000 like comments, which is unheard of for, you know, for these controversial kinds of things to all be Chinese trolls.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, man. It's pretty bad.
It's really bad, man. It's really bad.
Yeah, I don't know.
You sound like
I
the
don't
same
know
person.
I don't know what to do about it, but people watch out for 50 Cent Army. Everyone, for people I guess that don't know what 50 Cent Army is, basically like China's like bot slash paid people to go on Twitter, go on social media, go on YouTube, and post positive things about the Communist Party. And if you spent any time in any of those circles, or even just like Ari said, like checked out a video on Huawei or something that was slightly negative, go to the comment section. You will see. You will see.
Yeah, lots of video, and a lot of it is not even like logical. It'll be stuff like, you know, we love you, Huawei, or like a lot of this stuff. There was one with the CEO of Huawei, who's a no. I mean, he's a known member of the Chinese Communist Party, basically, and he has connections with the central government and with Xi Jinping, and they're like, oh, he's so, you know, he's just a cute old man. He's so respectable. You know, how can you say bad things about this poor old man? Like,
Yeah.
actually, I mean, who cares if he's an old man? He's involved in the widespread capture of people's private information for a totalitarian power. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
was Joseph Mengele just a cute old doctor? I mean,
Yeah, obviously not. And yeah, he not only is, I mean, he's just one like a bad guy because of like the way he made his billions. Basically, cheated a bunch of people on the way up. Like used other, as most billionaires do, is just exploited a bunch of people's labor and like their like coding prowess and things like that to like make a buck, and then rode that wave all the way, just basically doing very little and into being a huge billionaire. Like I believe the richest man in China. So.
is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's. Oh, I'll send you.
I
For
thought
anyone.
I thought Jack Ma
Uh huh.
was the richest person.
That's what I said. My.
Oh, I thought you were talking about what the fuck is this?
Oh
guy's
yeah,
name?
yeah, yeah. Sorry. I
while
was
ago.
because we were talking about Ma Yun before. We were talking about Ma Yun before.
Changing the
Yeah,
subject
yeah.
without telling
I
me.
don't. Yeah, sorry. I don't know. There's a. I'll send you a good. There's. If anyone listens to podcasts a lot, you really only need to listen to ours. But if you feel like venturing out, there's a good podcast called Grub Stakers. They talk about billionaires, and one of theirs is on Ma Yun, Jack Ma, and it's so good. It goes into a lot of depth about like how he made his money. But anyway, getting back to Huawei, yeah, I actually don't know that much about the Huawei owner, but I know. I mean, obviously, I know that like Huawei is basically a product of the CCP. Any giant corporation inside of China is deeply tied to the CCP government.
You have to be, or you just get regulated out of existence.
Exactly.
I mean, if you don't have a partnership with the CCP, it's It's very closed like that.
Or you get black bagged, or you get accused of a crime and sent to jail, and then they take over your company.
That too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can talk about basically now how China, the Chinese government, whatever, the Huawei, the American wing of Huawei is now trying to sue the U.S. government, saying that that this is a violation of their rights.
They said it was a human rights violation, right?
I don't think that was in the court filing, but they're
Okay.
really trying to do a big public. After so long not really caring about what Americans think of them, you can see by all these interviews and stuff, they're trying to do a big public relations thing to change public opinion of China in the United States. But I think most people are already pretty set. So I
Yeah.
hope they are, at least. I hope they know the truth.
I think a lot of people don't know, but they also would. I mean, in America, people are, when it's convenient for them, like when it comes to a phone, people aren't going to go out of their way to buy a Chinese phone, and people kind of like to buy American, at least in an idea, even though a lot of times they don't. They go to places like Walmart and these things where they actually sell, like, I think 25% of the goods at Walmart are imported from China, and that's like on the low end compared to like when you look at like Target and things like that, where like labor practices are better, but the place where they buy their shit is from a country with between 1 and 4 million. The latest estimate I saw was as high as 4 million people in fucking concentration camps. But people are just in their bubble. They don't pay attention to that stuff. So I hope it's getting on people's radar that, yeah, do not buy Huawei, do not buy any of these Chinese products.
Well, they're not allowed to anymore. I mean, they're not going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
What I mean, it's going to get fucked.
Oh, I hope so. Man, I hope he gets fucked. A lot
Well,
of the Taiwanese companies are pulling out of China now, which is good.
Yeah, Honghai is talking about moving their shit back, which would be good for Taiwan, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be
It'd
fucking
great for
huge for them. But then, I mean, whenever the trade war ends, what's to say they won't just move it back? I don't think they would move it back, honestly, because the wage differential is not that great anymore.
It's tough. See, that's the thing, is it depends on, because some of them are going to try to write it out. It depends on how much it hurts their bottom line and how long the trade war goes on. So if it goes on long enough where it really starts to cut into their bottom line, I think they'll move. And once they're back here, are the benefits of moving back, moving all of your plants and everything back to China going to be worth it? And
Probably not.
Are you
'cause the wages
trustworthy
are
that
high
that will
enough.
exactly? The
wages there
are
have gone up
raising.
so far, so that it's no longer like it doesn't
Yeah.
make that big of a difference anymore. But the
Yeah,
problem in
even
Taiwan is
before the trade war, they were moving to Southeast Asian countries. Go ahead.
the problem with Taiwan is that they're in a lot of these factories. They don't have enough Taiwanese workers to fill all these factories, man. That's why they have all these Southeast Asians here. So it depends if Taiwanese people are going to get these jobs or if they're going to be willing to raise wages or what.
See, I think that's going to have to be part of it. Is they're going to have to raise the wages, but that's the problem with that is then you're putting that balance sheet, you're putting that the scale there on whether billionaires or at least insanely rich people are going to look to the best interest of a country, or if they're just going to like sell out to the highest bidder, which is generally what happens. I mean, look at gold timing and look at people in America. A lot of the billionaires who don't do their fiduciary responsibility as a citizen in paying their taxes. They pay zero, or sometimes there are companies that paid net negative like 20% in taxes last year because of all the subsidies they receive.
Yeah,
It's disgusting, and it's unpatriotic, and those people should be spat upon, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I typically don't agree with eating them, like you often suggest, but I would agree with metaphorically spitting at them.
I think I don't. Obviously, political violence is never okay, but there's been a big thing in with like the UKIP people in UK getting milkshakes thrown at them, and
Why?
Because they're like vehement racists. So like, or like even
Not
like people.
all of them. Why haven't
Not
you
all
say
of-
the
not-
entire political
Not
party?
all of them. I know. But like, okay, yeah. I should be more measured with my words. There are some of them like Nigel Farage who are like bigoted, very bigoted. I'm not saying they're like card-carrying Nazis or anything, but they're bigoted and they have very damaging views to people who, especially people who are in the minority, and also people who are poor.
So I have some qualms with this. Do you consider being opposed to immigration racist?
Not out and out. It depends how you do it. If you do it like a person like Tucker Carlson, who's obviously not a politician, but if you do it like someone like that, where you say like immigrants coming into America is dirtying up America. I think that's very dangerous language.
We have a moral obligation to admit the world's poor, they tell us, even if it makes our own country poorer and dirtier and more divided.
That's blatantly racist, and I think a very bad thing to say.
If they use that rhetoric, but would you?
If they
to want to limit immigration so that it doesn't, and this is a very sensitive thing, but so that it doesn't modify the local culture, would that be racist or would that be overly conservative? What would you label that?
I think
it's different in different places. It's one thing talking about London, but it's another thing like talking about, let's say, you live in Bath and like whatever, or something like that, some small town where it has a local culture, and then like, all of a sudden 30% of the population is Polish or something like that.
I would say obviously it depends on each place, but I would say it depends on your rhetoric. I think arguing about like it changing the local culture, that very quickly devolves into fascist, racist ideology. Almost always when I've seen it. I'm not saying that's in every case, because it's generally saying that our culture is superior, which I mean,
it's not saying this is not a superior. I don't think that's necessarily true. Sometimes it's about preserving it, because when you lose the culture, I mean, you can still say your culture is valid and another culture is valid. But by not destroying the culture, that's not saying they're superior. That's saying that it has value and that it should be preserved.
I'm not against preserving culture, but I mean, look at America. Like, there's numerous cultures that operate simultaneously.
America is an immigration country, okay, but that's not to say the world is. There are a lot of countries that never wanted it. I mean, America is, the whole notion of it is that it was a big empty piece of land. People were coming in from all other places to make this place where
it wasn't empty. There were some people that lived here that we.
I mean, it was. I mean, come on. It was relatively empty. Like there were.
It was relatively empty.
There were a few 100,000 people living in a place the size of China. Basically.
Yeah, it's true. And then we came in and genocided. I'm just saying, like, don't gently sweep over the fact that we genocided an entire race of people.
The genocide did take place, but that's not how the entire American continent was captured. And I shouldn't use the word captured. Let's say how it developed into its present state. I'm very sympathetic, and I agree with that. Yeah, most of the Native Americans were not treated with anywhere near the respect, and the value of their lives was not even considered. But that's not the case everywhere in the United States, and to lump the Native Americans into one group is also not necessarily.
No, it would not be accurate. They're very different, and they had very different cultures in a lot of places and a lot of different ideologies. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying they're all the same thing, but I'm saying there were a lot of Native people here and also in other parts of the Americas in a broader context that were basically just killed or enslaved. And so I don't know. Anyway, that. Yeah, like put into like.
Oh, you mean prior to the foundation of America?
Yeah, exactly. And also, I mean, even when Americans came in, some of them they basically tried to enslave them, but they basically like wouldn't. It turned out that like people would say they didn't make good slaves. Is like kind of like the common sentiment that I've seen.
I think that
from
historical enslavement was banned before the institution of the United States, as far as I know, because I don't think they were.
What do you mean? Because we brought over we had a lot of slaves for over 100 years after America was founded.
Yeah, but I guess they weren't. But they weren't taking new slaves in the United States.
I'm pretty sure they were. I mean,
the Spanish
whether
it was prior to the foundation of the
not,
United States.
Well, the Spanish, but the Spanish were only in certain. I mean, we're getting into like a lot of different
talks
here.
Yeah.
I mean, Spanish were in mostly South America, Central America, and Florida in the United States. What is now Florida today? Anyway, continue with your main point, which is what you were saying, that the United States is different because it was basically set up as kind of like a cultural we use the word melting pot, but actually it's not really a melting pot. I mean, in some ways it is, like we cross cultures, but in a lot of ways people maintain their cultures. They set up these maybe little enclaves, or at least they intermix, but people still maintain their culture in some ways. That's changes in depending where you are. But go ahead. What were you trying to ask there?
By the way, if we do the road trip to Canada, man, you'll see how different it is in Canada. In the United States, they may have like neighborhoods and stuff like that, but in Canada, it's clear. Like at least in Toronto, basically, there are whole blocks where you just see like one or two languages, non-English languages. Like the neighborhood where I used to live was basically Persian and Korean. So every single house in the neighborhood, every single like little business either had Parsi or Korean on it. Like it's so clear, and it's not like it's like a small undeveloped enclave. These are like nice areas of town. They just have these kinds of neighborhoods where they all seclude themselves, basically.
I mean, it happens in America too.
Yeah, but to
I
less
think,
of extent,
to a lesser
like,
degree. Yeah. I will totally admit that. But I mean, you have like Chinatowns, Koreatowns, things like this, and
in very dense urban areas. That's in
even,
New York
even
City.
even in some suburbs, there are. It's
Really?
not. I grant you, it's not as segregated as that. But like, I mean, look at like black versus white areas, and that's due to a lot of like red.
But those are
things
two.
like
Those
that.
are two. I would say those are the majority populations, because what is it? Probably about 55% white, about 20% African American, roughly.
Yeah,
so
like
those would be the two majority races in the United States. Persian and Korean are majorities nowhere except Iran and Korea.
It's true, but that's again. I mean, when you get to like, I mean, the Chinese are also not even close to a minority in America, but they have these. Maybe that is why, because they're such small minority company. Maybe historically speaking, this is why these enclaves have been established, is because they are such small minority communities that they have to stick together to make it.
But a lot of these, like in Canada, these are more recent groups. It's not like they came like 70 years ago and they're facing discrimination. Most of Canadian immigration happened within the last 50, 60 years, basically.
It's true, and I mean, look at this. Look at the Somali residents in Minnesota. Like, a lot of them live in pseudo enclaves, and there's Muslim people like throughout Michigan and stuff like that cluster up together. And I don't know. Do you think is that necessarily a bad thing? I mean, I could see problems.
I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it's different. But okay, yeah. So back to that point. A lot of countries who have accepted a lot of migration. I mean, the entire European Union, the entire Schengen area, because of the free migration rules. Basically, you have a lot of these countries that formerly would have considered themselves nation states, and some people can talk about the pluses or minuses of patriotism, nationalism, the nation state concept, whether this should even exist anymore. That doesn't change the fact that that's what they were, what they considered themselves, and what a lot of people still consider these countries. So, is that racist? Is it hateful to not to want to keep out others, to exclude others, in order to conserve the culture that was that's currently previously in a specific place? Is that cruel? Is it wrong? Comment stuff.
I think it would be based on a lot of factors, like I think it, again, some of this gets down to rhetoric, and I think especially if your nation has the ability to help these countries, especially if, like, this is more so maybe for the United States, and the fact that we take in like some of the least amount of refugees in the world. I don't have the exact numbers on that, but we take a striking.
Yeah, I'm not talking about
low
refugees.
amount.
Refugees is a very specific issue, but I'm talking about like economic migration, basically. So you have countries like Denmark. Well, let's stick with the UK, because the UK is a huge acceptor of migration, intra-Europe migration, basically. People with Schengen passes. So you've got a country where they're coming from places like Poland and Romania. So I don't know if you would consider that racist, because I mean they're all Caucasian. It's that they're culturally different. They share. They don't share the same language, but you have a country that previously considered itself essentially a nation state. So in a case like that, and they're coming for economic opportunity.
I would say that there's nothing wrong with limiting migration. I think obviously there has to be limits on migration. within certain countries unless you have, like, if the EU somehow figured it out that they could make it work and they all work together and all join their economies enough where it's like, okay, even if there's too many people in one part, which they clearly haven't figured out all the kinks yet in that. But
Well,
anyway,
it's because there's differences in benefit structures, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So it hasn't been worked out. So until you get to that point, I think
This is probably why this is one of the major reasons, I think, why most of the no votes took place, is that people were threatened by basically a migration system that they felt that they didn't have enough say in controlling.
I think, yeah, I would agree with you. And but I do think that racism and xenophobia did play a big part in that.
So
It's not necessarily
what's
the majority. So I would just say, in general, but you can't base it on where these people are coming from. You just have to say migration in general. We have to limit it, just because you get some economists together to say this is what this is the amount of people that we can support within our country, no matter where they're coming from. And if you want to talk about taking, obviously you should have some sort of, quota for like, well, we should take this amount of refugees because we can improve their life significantly.
Not talking about refugees.
But that's who you're bringing in. It's still immigration.
No. I mean, that's a very small portion. You look at the number of people who migrate to countries for economic reasons. In almost every country in the world, they outstrip people with valid refugee claims by a scale of dozens to one.
Okay,
best.
so then in general, I would just say, okay, put a number on it, but then just scan for the most.
But okay,
candidates.
who decides the number? So this is the qualm that I had, is you can say economists, and economists have their own biases, but should it be up to whatever they can accommodate, or should it be up to what people think would be an appropriate ratio of foreigners living in a country, or should it be based on what? What besides economics? You can't just take. Technically, any country could accommodate as many migrants as probably would be willing to come, as long as the resources, the infrastructure in the country can handle it. Is that? If the country of the United States doubled the population in 2 years, there would be rioting. There would be, even if
we already can't support the people that we have right now. We could, and we easily
socially.
could.
You mean socially support?
I mean fiscally support them. We could, but we don't. Look at the financial system. There's, something like 40% of people can't afford a $400 emergency. People don't go to the doctor and rationing insulin because they can't afford to go to a doctor. Like, it's ridiculous. So it all depends on a laundry list of factors. And I don't think, getting back to kind of your point, is like, I don't think that it should just be economists, obviously, but there should be some sort. People that are much smarter than me, we should come up with some way to find this number. Because what is the other way? How else do you do it? You just get
usually it's just arbitrary.
One side that's saying, yeah, exactly. So you're getting one side that's saying we shouldn't let basically anyone in, or like you get someone like Trump, these like wannabe fascists that just like are opposed to anyone who doesn't have white skin coming in, and they're like we're doing a complete and total shutdown of Muslims coming into the country, or some shit like that. You get like some of these UKIPers that are basically like worried about brown people coming into the country. So I think that you have to set up some sort of independent council that is full of very intelligent people from the highest echelons of like academia, economists, things like this. I'm just saying economists again, but like these like people that know what they're talking about, obviously have a lot of data and research, and then it has to be some sort of discussion from there. But I don't think that setting some arbitrary number just because of either A, xenophobia, or B, the other side of that is just, we should just let everyone in. We should have open borders. And open borders is like a pretty fringe ideology. I don't think it's as popular as like racist ideology even. But I don't know. I think it's got to be more complicated than that. But I don't think that. I think it gets dangerous quite quickly when you just say we're worried about the devolution of our culture. I think that quickly devolves into. Because
I know what you're saying.
Look at what we just said. There are people that move into this country, move into America, not into this country, move into America, move into Canada, and they maintain their culture.
Yeah.
So you can still maintain your culture, and just because another group of people comes in, just because a bunch of Chinese people move into the United States, say, 2, 3, 4, 20 million fucking Chinese people move into the United States, doesn't mean in 10 years that everyone's going to be using chopsticks.
Okay, when we go to Canada, you'll see what the Chinese people have done to Toronto, and I don't mean that in like a racist way, but basically, Toronto, at least northern Toronto, is majority Chinese now. It's not like they formed their own neighborhoods. They've basically colonized the city, and now it's very difficult to buy a home. The real estate prices, and this is not a race thing. The sheer number of people that immigrated to Canada from Hong Kong and from China in the last 20 years have basically caused the real estate market to go up. And without exaggeration, I can say in the last 20, 30 years, it's probably gone up by about 700%.
Mm-hmm.
The house my parents sold when we moved out in like the mid 90s would now be worth about 7 times the value.
That's crazy. I mean, that happens with gentrification in the United States as well, but
that's not gentrification. That's just population exploding.
I'm saying it's something that happens as well in other places for different reasons, but I definitely get your point. And what I would say is there's some evidence that some of that stuff is like ops by the CCP to like basically get strongholds in other places. But that aside, because that's a whole different rabbit hole. I think then it's also a good thing to find ways to incentivize people to just to fall into the culture that they're moving into. So if you have these people coming in, I think in a lot of cases, okay, for instance, like a lot of the Asian people that I knew in where I went to university, a lot of the first generation immigrants, the people that came to the country when they were maybe like 30, 40, 50, maybe even some of them a little bit younger, they are very traditional, but every generation after that is less and less tied to that. But in some ways they still are. Like they still hold on to some of the religious beliefs. They still hold on to some of the culture beliefs. Some of them still speak that language as a second language, and they don't speak it totally fluently, but they perfectly fine English, and they dive into this new culture. Like a lot of my friends who are Cambodian.
I'm not arguing that it's not true, but
so that's what I'm saying is I think then you're not really in danger of losing your culture. So if you put restrictions on it, I think there's nothing to fear.
Well, okay, I know what you're saying.
I just worry about the demonization of immigrants. I think that's a very disgusting and very dangerous thing to do.
That's true, but you do have to worry about the social unrest that causes when people do feel these feelings, whether they're right or not, because people are going to feel them. It's natural to be uncomfortable with changes, especially when a majority group starts feeling their position being threatened. And then the social unrest sometimes causes hate. That it's not
true.
That the hate existed there before. It's that
I think a lot of that, though. Sorry to cut you off. Keep going.
No, that's it.
Okay. I feel like some of that is. I don't know how much of it, but I would say a generous portion, if not. All right, I'll just say a generous portion. That's a safe word to use. Is fomented by these politicians or these talking heads on certain TV outlets in whatever country you want to go to, that are bringing this up. I think that's a lot of that is on them, because if you're because rich people, especially rich people in the media, things like that, they have a vested interest in dividing these populations.
Not always. In a lot of cases, they have a vested interest in increasing immigration because it creates a fluid labor market, so they stand to make more money.
What I'm saying, I'm not
it also
saying
jacks up real estate prices. So you could say the powers that be, whatever, sometimes have an interest in increasing immigration. So I disagree with that.
My point is not that they're against immigration. It's that on their face they will be against immigration, even because they know it's going to happen either way. Like, look at America; it's going to happen either way. People get these illegal immigrants, and a lot of them work for people like Trump, who is has vehement anti-immigration speech, but yet his golf courses are staffed, overflowing with illegal immigrants.
Yeah, but all it takes is a violent enough social movement, and sometimes look at Brexit, man. That's an example of when it backfires, when all the people who pumped all this anti-immigration stuff out there, the Conservative Party originally, they're the ones who, against their fucking will, basically, against the, I mean, the party isn't completely unified, but against at least the Cameron wing, they lost, man. They lost their credibility, and they lost control of their fucking party, basically.
And Theresa May just fucking resigned in fucking shame.
To have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
They hate it, man. I mean, they can't stand this shit because they were pro-market. But
it's true. But this was my point in saying that, is that they push that to keep even if they because they know that this immigration is going to happen either way. And it's different for different countries. That's obviously fair. Like, the situation is going to be different in every country. But they benefit off of keeping the lower class divided along racial lines or along religious lines, things like that. Because if they are divided and they hate each other, if the white guy from South Carolina hates the black guy from Mississippi and is a racist or even just prejudiced against him and thinks that he's not doing anything, or prejudiced against the South American immigrant coming across the border, when you keep these people divided, then it's much harder for them to rise up against the people that are actually keeping them in the position that they're keeping them in and cutting their social welfare programs and these social safety net programs.
I don't know if I agree, because a lot of times these kinds of friction that take place, they cause social unrest and they cause chaos, which is also horrible for business.
It's like what I mean, but it's not like especially in a country like America or something with like a pretty big economy, pretty strong economy. It's going to cause some social unrest. Like there's social unrest.
What is it? Ferguson, Missouri.
Yeah, but I mean, what has come of that? There's still videos every week or two that come out of some black person getting assaulted, getting tased, getting a gun planted on them. It's still happening. It's deeply ingrained in this society. And it's fomented weekly by some politicians and by some of these media organizations. So, and I think that I don't necessarily
they spur it, but I don't think it's fomented by them. I think they're kind of like stoking the flame that's already there.
So, what would you say is the difference between that and what I'm saying?
They're not 100%. Maybe that they're doing it unconsciously. I disagree.
Okay,
I disagree with the notion
I'm not
that's
saying
a conspiracy.
Yeah. I'm not saying that they all meet in a back room necessarily and like hash this out like all the rich people and stuff. Though there are like, this is like the big societies, and this is getting a little bit more into conspiratorial waters. But there are big societies basically where a bunch of rich people meet and have these discussions.
China.
And I don't think. Yeah, definitely in China, for sure. But I think that it also happens in the United States, and I don't think it's out and out like what's our plan for the fucking proles this year, like. But I do think that it is
Pro Report 2019.
I think that it is.
What's the next 5-year plan?
It's somewhat unconscious, but it's also somewhat conscious. I think they kind of in the back of their mind they know this, and so it helps them. And I think also some of them are just out and out bigots. So. I don't know. That's where I would lie on it. I mean, I just think that we need to have an honest conversation about these sorts of like, immigration questions, things like that. Instead of saying, oh, immigrants are dirty or immigrants are like the problem when it's not the biggest problem. And I don't think, I guess to get back to the cultural discussion that we were having at the beginning is like, I don't think that. I mean, I understand it where you're talking about in some of these smaller countries where they're a little bit scared of it, but I think, again, if you incentivize becoming part of that culture while maybe also keeping parts of your own culture, which I think is not bad, I don't see I think that could be a decent solution. How exactly you go about that is a little difficult, but
I think one of the problems is that it was basically. Yeah, Europe really hasn't worked out as kinked. It's been fairly unrestrained. So you have like countries like the UK, which accepted basically the majority of EU migration. How many people from the UK migrated to Poland versus how many people from Poland and Romania migrated to the UK or any other country? It's because everyone studies English, so they go to fucking the UK, man. And you take another look. Look at I was reading a report about Italy this week. So you take. Sicily, Sicily, of course. Yeah. This is not an intra-EU migration. This is a African migration issue, basically, because it's an island sticking out there. Basically, Palermo has gone from basically 0% not Italian to something like 30+%. So basically, there's an open race war between the mafia, like the old Italian mafia, and the African gangs that have basically tried to take the criminal market share there. So basically, this week there was a Gambian guy, and he just got shot point blank on the street, and just like the latest iteration of a race war. They just shot him through the head and drove off.
I think that talks more to social unrest within the society.
Yeah, but
I mean, you could tie that to immigration, because if over immigration happens, then yeah, you could strain your markets.
The social unrest is caused by huge demographic shifts.
I don't know if that's. I think that
the population.
Not necessarily. I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think it is.
The population went
up. A huge population.
30% in probably less than 20 years. 30%, and none of them. I mean, they're not Italian.
That's not a problem with a demographic shift, though. That's a problem with the population increase.
That
is not the same thing. I think you're saying that it's a demographic issue, but it's not a demographic.
It's not only population. It's the fact that they're not Italian, and half of them are not even allowed to be there legally, so they can't get jobs there.
Yes, and so then you need to deal with that. You need to either find a way that if you deem them some sort of, like, they have some sort of refugee status, then you need to find a way to get to process them and things like that. And if they're there illegally, then I think you need to deport them or figure out what you're going to do with them. But in terms of just saying I just don't think that is a demographic problem. I think it is a population problem.
When I said demographic, what I meant is that the population, the ethnic makeup, the socioeconomic structure, that kind of shift in that sense.
Yeah, but here's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. If you have a stable economy, you take in the amount of people from wherever. Say they're completely different culturally from you, but they come into your country and you have the economy set up so it can support all of these people. I think you're going to have far fewer problems, because when people are poor, they end up demonizing these immigrants. And again, that goes back to the media and things like that. I think it's much more easy to demonize them and to scapegoat these people. If they came in and they basically, like, worked at a factory or worked at some jobs within the country, like look at Australia, and this is not permanent migration, but you have a ton of people from East Asia going down there to work every year, and there is racism for sure, and there's going to be racism always until we get past it.
But Australia doesn't have many problems. The issues, all of the things we're talking about, are basically where the systems failed and the system of migration became uncontrolled, became chaotic, like Italy, like the UK, where they never intended it for it to be a one-way flow of millions of people over a short period of time. It's where there's chaos. And you look at the United States, okay? Most of the immigration to the United States, look at Canada versus the United States. And Canada's got its own serious problems because of all the loopholes for people who invest money, which is how all these unskilled Chinese people got in, who basically used their ill-gotten gains from the Communist Party to buy houses and establish residency there.
It happens in the U.S. too. Jared Kushner was like courting basically Chinese millionaires.
I remember that. It happens everywhere. Okay, but look at in general, immigration in, let's say, Australia or Canada versus the United States. Most of U.S. immigration comes from family reunification, which means that the people generally, statistically, tend to be poor, less educated, and have worse prospects for integrating into the United States economy. Versus Canada and Australia mostly is based on skilled migration, where you get points based on whether you're fluent in the national languages. And every year of schooling, if you have a bachelor's degree, you get higher points. If you have a master's degree, you're even higher. If you come from an in-demand field, you get more points. If you're married and have children, you get more points because they want families migrating. Those kinds of things. So they get basically exactly the kind of people, education-wise, language-wise, demographically, that they want, insteid of just randomly basically taking whatever. Instead of letting the people self-select.
I can generally get on board with, I think, in a lot of ways that the immigration process should be tailored to get the best candidates to come into your country.
I'm just saying it should be controlled. It needs to be controlled, or you're going to have problems.
Yeah, I obviously think I'm not an open borders guy.
I can tell you this, I used to be. When I was in high school, I remember having these arguments with my dad. And my dad takes way too much influence from me, basically. But I used to have these arguments, and I was like, oh, all these borders were arbitrary. You know, the United States created these borders 100 years ago. There used to be open migration, and now everyone's just grandfathered in. It's not fair. We could be taking more people, you know, that these borders are just socially constructed. They don't mean anything, so why keep them? And
I used to also hold that view.
But I've completely changed, and a lot of it comes from reciprocity. So, I mean, my father would always be like, my father immigrated to Canada, and basically the time that he immigrated, he was there on some kind of temporary visa, and he had to wait a long time and pay a shitload of money over, I think, more than almost a decade in order to get to permanent residency and finally to citizenship in Canada. At the same time he was there, basically, Canada had a shitload of people from Commonwealth countries who had immigrated there, and in the 1970s they instituted an amnesty program for people who were there illegally. So he's like, he's there on legally paying shitloads of money on these visas, you know, waiting his turn, and then he hears about this and he's so excited, so he went and applied. He's like, oh yeah, you know. And they're like, no, you're not here illegally, so you're not eligible for amnesty. You have to wait until the end of your process. And he's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you have somebody who could have come from, like, you know, come illegally 3 weeks ago, and because they don't have legal status here, they can apply for amnesty. But I've been here for fucking, like, 5-6 years, and I have to stand in line now? Like, the unfairness of the immigration system sometimes, man.
I'm not totally, I mean, it's always going to be unfair. I think we need to obviously address these things, and I'm also not opposed to amnesty in certain instances. But in terms of that, that's a ridiculous thing. And especially if you do have it set up to bring in these people that are highly skilled and things like that, and you have someone who has a master's degree or doctorate and speaks the native language fluently, I think that they should get they shouldn't be paying a ton of money. They're going to benefit our society, and I think that's what we should look at immigrants in general as, is these people are coming to our country, and if we have it set up the correct way, they are going to benefit our country immensely. And so I don't know, I think obviously it's a ridiculous system. I still think that there's some merit to say, like, things like, we could handle more people, so we should take in some more people. We should try to do good things in the world. And I think that will not only just be good for the world, but it also raise the view of America, because right now America is not liked in a lot of places, sometimes for bad reasons, but a lot of times for very valid reasons, for things that we do in other countries and for things that we do within our own country to immigrants that come to this country. And obviously saying what America does is like a very broad thing, because again, we've talked about this before, it's a democracy, so we have people vying for power and people vying for policy issues and things like that, so it's not clear cut. But I agree with you. I think our immigration system definitely needs to be reformed, and a lot of countries' immigration systems need to be reformed.
I also think it's interesting to see how my viewpoints have changed since my youth, and I'm sure yours have too. It sounds like we were both open borders, more radical back then.
Yeah, I went from probably in junior high, maybe, and into partly into high school, basically being like, you know, we shouldn't be taking like any of these fucking immigrants, especially over the southern border. And then I went to the extreme opposite end in college of just like, fuck it, man. These are lines we drew on a map. Like, it's stupid. And to be completely frank, like I am in favor of open boards in a utopian society. I think that would be wonderful. Everyone can move around. Everyone can come and go as they please. But in the real world, I just don't think that's an option.
It's complicated. But yeah,
maybe one day, but definitely not now.
I mean, these are also, at this point, these are consensus lines for the most part. So basically, just as we have restrictions on people coming from other countries, most countries have restrictions on us going to their country to live as well. So
yeah, true.
It's not so, like, look at Mexico, man. We think, oh, you know, we need to open up more immigration open up more trade to our southern neighbors. But like Americans are not even allowed to own property in Mexico, and that's a fact.
That's interesting.
But Mexico
there are a lot of immigrants from America into Mexico.
You're not allowed to own property. You can go through a company and get a 99-year lease, but you're literally not allowed to own land there.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I think
it's
that
just
a
a thing
lot of
against foreigners, an anti-foreigner law that like people just ignore.
Yeah, and I think those are things that should be reformed, and that's why we should work together with these other countries.
I don't know if we need to reform that. That's their prerogative, and just as so, every country is fully permitted to have its own prerogative as long as it doesn't improperly discriminate, I would say. And owning property, listen, if that's what they want to do, that's their fucking choice, I feel like.
They're allowed to make that choice, I agree, but I don't necessarily, I still probably wouldn't totally agree with it. That doesn't mean I think it's a good idea.
I don't know, because there are reasons
I get what
for
you're
it.
saying.
Because you can price people out. This is like why in Taiwan, they don't want Chinese people coming here and buying up all the property, man. Because can you imagine what would happen if even, let's say, whatever, Xiamen, like Xiamen is like a third-tier city. Let's say a tenth of the population of Xiamen decided to buy houses in Taiwan. The effect that would have on the property market here would be reverberate for generations.
I agree. I think anytime we talk about China, it's a little bit of a different beast just because of the CCP, man. Because every China, and I saw someone talking about something like this on Twitter.
Not only the CCP, but the sheer scale of the number of people who have middle class wealth that they just would love to get out of the country.
Well, I mean, and the rich are fleeing China at alarming rates right now, because they are, and Hong Kong too. Hong Kong is a big one that people are fleeing, because they know it's not good. Like they know the direction of the country, their country is taking right now.
Hong Kong has always been a shit country to live. It's a good place if you're a wealthy capitalist.
But if you're rich, but now it's not. Now it's not, and a lot of rich people are fleeing Hong Kong right now. Especially with this extradition law that they're proposing, or they're trying to pass right now.
Did they pass it yet? I thought they passed it.
I don't know if they passed it. If they did pass it, there's a lot of protests. Last I heard, they didn't protest it, which was, I heard about this, this was not too long ago. There were still people tweeting about, what do you think it will take to, get them to not pass this law? But yeah, even if they have passed it, there are people, right now, seriously trying to protest this law, because it's going to be very, very bad for Hong Kong, people in Hong Kong, especially people who are outspoken about government or anything like that, which is a decent amount of people in the country, because they have a lot of protests, even though they don't really have a democracy. Now they have even less of one.
Oh man, I hate this Carrie Lam so much. She's the worst.
Oh yeah, she's garbage. I follow a guy on Twitter who just always bashes her, and it's so funny.
They haven't never had a chief executive who hasn't been garbage. And you know what? Because none of them are fucking democratically elected.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a big joke, man. So it says the entire bar association is going to, protest this, which is good.
That is good. Let's hope something comes out of that, man. I mean, I'm got my fingers crossed for Hong Kong, but it does not look good for them. It looks very bad. There's a lot of people in opposition to these rules and to the slow overtake by the CCP, but there's not a whole lot that people can do, especially when Hong Kong is not a democracy, so the people don't get to say anything about it.
Let me see. So I guess it hasn't passed yet. Eh? Yeah, I don't think it's passed yet.
Yeah. It's very close, though. It's very close to passing. I mean, there are people protesting right now, out in the streets.
Yeah, man, we need to start talking about this more. This is important. I thought it was done, but I didn't realize that people are getting involved in this.
There have been massive protests, and even today I was reading about protests going on right now, basically, housewives taking to the street, workers, everyone, man. These people are not okay with it, but they have no say. They don't get to vote on that shit. So
yeah, and they never will.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hopefully at some point they will. You never know. Never say never, but in the current iteration of the government, they certainly won't. And here's hoping that they get democracy at some point. But it's gonna be really hard being literally chest to chest with China, being basically a city state.
I mean, that's what they are now, more or less. Man, they already have
That's
people
what I'm
getting
saying.
kidnapped from their own city without this extradition treaty, like the bookstore owners.
Yep, exactly. And so, but yeah, people need to be on their shit about this and like talking about it more, because it's the fact that it is not international red alert on this right now is absurd.
Yeah, man. Hong Kong's already not in good shape.
It hasn't been for a long time. So,
Did you see the meme? I sent a meme a while ago with like they were like talking about why they don't want increased immigration from China to Taiwan. Basically, since I mean Hong Kong, because of their ultra capitalist government and their cooperation with the Communist Party, they've allowed basically all their social services to turn to trash. So it was like the wait line for an ultrasound, okay, was like 9 months or something like that.
Yeah.
So basically, like let's say
you would have your baby before you got your first ultrasound.
well, a lot of that is for like cancer screening and shit, man, or serious diseases. Have a concussion, get a head injury, get in a car accident. I mean, you can take an X-ray or nothing. That's basically the only thing. If you were asking for an advanced scan, you're gonna be dead before you get treatment.
Jeez. All right, here's what I like to say as a comparison to show people the difference between Taiwan and China. Today, because I need to renew my
ARC.
yes, I went to the local hospital. I walked in and they told me that it was going to be an hour because I went at the worst time, which is noon. Which
By
is
the
when
way,
everyone's eating.
that depends which hospital you go to, but keep going.
True, yeah, it definitely does. But anyway, so I went at a bad time. I went at noon, and they were like, "Yeah, we're like on our lunch break." I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense." All right, so I went across the street, ate some food. Their chiedza was really bad. I was really upset, but their noodles were good.
You gotta cook it at home, man.
Ate some noodles, chilled outside, scrolled through Twitter, went back in at 1:00. I did They asked me a bunch of questions. They took my temperature. They took my blood pressure. They did an X-ray, a chest X-ray.
Did you go to
They
Li
took my
Xin?
blood. Yep. They took my blood, and they took my height, weight, and measurements. And I talked with a doctor in person, and he did check my heart, check my lungs, check my mouth, basically for like any problems.
Oh, because
Asked
you're a
me if
smoker.
Asked me if I had any problems, basically, and then he was basically like, "Oh yeah, you seem good." I asked him about my blood pressure because I thought it was high, and he was like, "You're below high blood pressure, like you're like 10, 15 points below high blood pressure." I was like, "Yeah, it's like I just want to be careful because like I have a history of high blood pressure, blah blah blah." He's like, "Well, like technically like you're like above like what like perfect blood pressure is, but like." It's good, like, and like we usually account because like people get nervous, blah blah blah. Anyway, so
I wonder
like,
if the veganism has a difference, man. Because
I'm sure it has.
because my blood
I'm almost
pressure is
100%
typically
sure.
really high. Like the last time I had a physical, I actually failed the blood pressure test.
So you're what, like over 140?
Yeah, the last time I did one for when I started at the university here, and then I did another one 2-3 months later when I changed jobs here, and it was the same thing. I took it 3 times, and then finally one time I took it. I literally took it 3 times, and one of them passed under 140.
Damn, son.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, so he was basically like, yeah, we like kind of account for it because like you know, if you're like in a hospital, we basically like give you like a 10-point sway. Like we know that your blood pressure is going to be a little high cuz like a lot of people get nervous, which I hate hospitals. So I do get a little nervous when I go into hospitals. I try to like control my breathing and stuff before I do my blood pressure so
So
it's
do I.
accurate, but it doesn't really matter.
Okay, well in
man.
that case, I don't have hypertension.
You're
'Cause
probably
it was
you're
like
probably
140,
alright, but you should be careful.
or something, you know. Well, man, I hope that stopping eating eggs and dairy, maybe because it worked for your dad, right? Hopefully,
Yeah.
it'll work for me too. I can get it down to like, like a baby's blood pressure. Be healthy like a baby.
Yeah, my dad. I know my dad is he's gotten off so many medications since he started doing his blood pressure stuff or his vegan stuff. Man,
my dad told me
crazy.
his blood measures are getting better too, and he's not even a month in.
And this is you can look at like not only just like blood pressure, but like your blood levels, like your iron levels.
Yeah, that's what
all
he
these
did
things.
because he's got all kinds of health issues.
Yeah.
So he gets checks for all. He gets like all kind of checks. I don't want to go into his stuff, but
Yeah, it's good, man. It's definitely a good thing to do. But anyway,
I'm so proud of my dad.
whole point in saying this, I'm proud of him too. He's been posting good pics on them.
I know, right?
Oh man, like every time he posts on them, I'm like usually I just ate and I like posted something too when I see it, but I'm just like, damn, I'm glad I just ate because like if I saw that shit, I'd be so mad. Like I'd be so hungry right now.
Yeah, it makes you miss America, right?
Sometimes,
Mexican
yeah. I mean,
food.
most of the usually I eat a fire meal before I see his pic, so I'm like, that looks good, but like I miss that, like especially when he eats like Mediterranean food and things like that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I miss that. Like, there's not a lot of that in Taiwan, but Taiwan's got banging food too, man. I'm getting really off my point here, but I'll say this first. I bought a lunchbox the other day that was so full, like it was insane. Like the lady could like she put rubber bands around it and it still wasn't. It was like half open. Like I'm talking, I bought I don't know if I posted. I'll post it soon on our Merciful Mastication May. It was so full, dude. It had like 12 different vegetables or some shit in it, and it was so good, dude. And I killed the whole thing. But anyway, my whole point in saying that was like I got all of that stuff done, like ridiculous, like X-rays and shit, like everything. I got it all done, and I had personal time with a physician. It took me all of 30 minutes.
Time.
30 minutes total, and I paid. This is for like a government mandated check to renew like a government document, and I paid, I think $30, something like that.
Yeah, that's about the same as I paid here last time.
Yeah, and like a normal doctor visit is not even that much. Like I went in to get X-rays before, and like spoke to a doctor after I broke my collarbone, and I paid like 150 NT. That's like what, like $10, something like that. What is that? 150 NT.
$5.
Yeah, $5.
Forgetting
Exactly.
U.S. exchange.
Yeah, I like haven't used US dollars in so long that like I forget. Same thing with like Celsius. I've kind of like completely switched over. So like I'm like, oh, it's like 30 degrees out here, and someone's like, how hot is that in like Fahrenheit? And I'm just like, I don't know. Like I couldn't convert that.
You don't want to. You don't want to talk to them people.
Yeah, I don't like to talk to people that use Fahrenheit. But anyway, that whole thing is to say that Taiwan's medical is so good and Hong Kong's is bad because, and this has been a problem from even before like recent times, like the extradition treaty, blah, 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 blah. Chinese people from China have consistently gone to Hong Kong to get medicine because it's better. And China has terrible, like essentially no social programs in their country. They basically just let they don't give a fuck about their people. And it shows because there's over 1 billion of them. And so they will let them starve and die in the streets. And that's since Mao created the shithole country that they live in, that's been the case. And I think that's the only time we should use shithole countries in response to China because their government is so bad.
By the
Maybe that
way,
in like Saudi Arabia.
You have to post something about Tiananmen. I already wrote a whole article. It's not great, but it's something.
Dude,
It's scheduled to post at midnight before Tiananmen.
On June 4th, we should before June 4th. We should do a Tiananmen podcast or like maybe even a live stream.
It's gonna be hard, man, because that's a busy time. Like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday night, basically, to Thursday day are like my busiest.
Okay, well, I'll try to write an article about it. I just finished my 2 other articles about Xinjiang a little bit broadly, at least recent Xinjiang developments in the last 10-ish years. And I just wrote one about Hunter Biden and his escapades, mostly into China, but I also wrote a little bit about Ukraine and how fucked up all that shit is. Ukraine, me crane, we all crane.
I don't like craning, just for the record.
But I wrote those 2, so all right. I'll try to. I have another one because I want to write about this guy.
I wrote one about the AIB. but keep going.
AIB?
Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Anyway, you go first.
What I was going to say is I wrote about the when I was writing about Hunter Biden, basically I came upon an article that was talking about what's his name? Guo Wengui. Do you know who that is?
I have no idea who that is.
Basically a Chinese billionaire. I didn't do a deep dive into him. I just like talked about him topically, but like he's basically a Chinese billionaire that fled the country in 2014 because he was like really close with the top Chinese, the top CCP people, and then he fled the country because like they were gonna get him on charges, which he claims are trumped up, but you know obviously the CCP says are fair, and I haven't done enough research to say whether I think that he's telling the truth or not. But he fled to the U.S., like put himself in self-imposed exile to basically escape these charges, which included things like money laundering, bribery. One of them was rape, kidnapping, like these crazy charges, and fled to the U.S. And now he's like releasing all these YouTube videos and like interviews, basically saying that like all this corruption within the CCP, and he's talking about one of the companies that I talked about within my article. Basically, like he's saying that they are basically just an arm of the Communist Party. It's a conglomerate group.
What is?
And what is the name of that group? Hold on one sec.
Huawei.
No, hold on.
Huawei.
The group is called the H&A Group, basically. So it's this conglomerate of like 20 plus Chinese companies that basically is like doing business around the world. And like they're, according to this guy, Guo Wengui, he's basically saying that like they created this basically to enrich high party members, and what they're doing is like buying up investments and things like that across the world.
Okay.
And yeah, and so just his whole thing, I don't remember why I got on this, but like his whole thing is like basically that they're trying to enrich these people, and at the same time like doing like illegal business and stuff like that across the world. So it was like really interesting to like dip my toe in it, because like it's kind of like a subplot in my article, but I really want to like look into that more. So I think what I was talking about is that I like there's so many articles that I want to write right now. Just whenever I do a research for an article, it makes me like be like, should I put this all together into one? That's how my Xinjiang article started. I actually started writing about Hunter Biden first, but then I switched to writing about Xinjiang, and I was like, okay, I need to write about Xinjiang now. So I just wrote a Xinjiang article, and then now I wrote the Hunter Biden article, and now I'm like, should I write a Guo Wengui article, or should I write like, you know? But anyway, I also I'll try to write a Tiananmen article too.
Yeah.
What'd you write about in Tiananmen? Because I don't want to bite your shit, man.
It's not really about. You can read it. It'll probably take you like less than 5 minutes to read it.
Okay.
It's about. It's trying to. Oh, jeez, man! I'm getting hot sauce all over my jeans. It's gross.
It's not the worst thing to get on your jeans.
It's called Tiananmen and Hanguoyu. So yeah.
All right, what else is in the news? Mueller came out and basically said
Your
Dem
molar
should
came
impeach
out.
Trump.
Your molar fell out of your mouth.
Fuck you. You should.
That's gross, man.
You're such a troll.
You need to brush your teeth more.
I'm gonna pull one of my molars out now and like put it under your pillow, like the fucking horse head in Godfather.
That would be really scary. All right, Mueller came out. I know, and he's like,
Yeah, so
no collusion, no obstruction. It's a witch hunt.
There-
Hillary put me up to this.
18 angry Democrats.
And me.
It just seems like he's like basically saying like
The Steele dossier was
Hey.
the real collusion.
No collusion, no obstruction.
it seems like he's saying, hey Dems, I can't, like it's illegal for, like I'm not legally allowed to, you know, charge him. Can you do something? Like he did illegal shit, but like I can't say that. Like I shouldn't say that because, you know, I'm a lifelong Republican. And,
I'm one of the 18 angry Democrats.
Yeah, exactly. The 19 angry Democrats. I don't know, man. It's just it's fucked.
You can't touch this.
So something that I've been dying to ask you.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
Go for it.
Something I've been wanting to
Yeah, what
ask
is
you is
What?
where do you lie on impeachment, asshole?
No. I think the status quo should be kept for now. I think that he's horrible in most ways, but he's so involved with China right now that the longer this China shit goes on, the better. And honestly, Mike Pence on everything else would probably be just about the same. I feel like Mike Pence is,
But what about?
Mike Pence
Sorry,
is
go
probably
ahead.
more competent at getting like right-wing shit passed through Congress. So I feel like this is kind of a happy normal where like nothing gets done, and we just kind of have stagnation and a trade war with China for the next 2 years. That's good with me.
Here's what I would say. One, there's the argument that this is going to set precedent, basically, that will mean that presidents can wantonly break the law, and they can basically interfere with investigations on themselves. And also, saying that like this is a happy normal is not true for
It's
a lot
not
of people,
normal, but
'cause
it's
basically
not.
they're
It's not going to pass
they're
the
in-
Senate. So like,
it's yeah, I agree with you on that.
so what's the point?
And this is where I've been in between it, but because I've heard people make the argument. I'm still wrestling with this idea in my head.
If they got the Senate to say that, if they knew that the Senate would pass it, then I would say, yeah, okay, fine, and at least like send a message. You don't even need to remove him from office. You could just impeach him of the crime and say that this is, but
Bad?
Yeah, this is untenable, and basically some consequence needs to.
Completely illegal.
Let's say untenable. Let's leave it at that.
I would say.
I chose my word carefully.
Okay.
My single word.
Okay. Fair enough.
But as it stands, I mean, it's meaningless essentially. It's not at all ambiguous where the Democrats stand on Trump. It's not at all ambiguous where most of the country stands on Trump, to be honest. Like, he's not getting away with this. The next election is basically already decided. I mean,
I don't know about that.
if you look at the poll numbers, man, it's preposterous. There's no way he can come back from this. He's tainted his presidency so badly with just his ridiculous antics. Forget even the Mueller shit, man. The way he's governed has been garbage. He's not governing.
I agree with your latter point, but with your former point, if they run Joe Biden, there's a chance, man. If
Unless he live sexually assaults somebody on television, and I don't mean the little massages.
Okay, here's the thing.
Nobody could lose. Nobody could lose. Honestly,
I disagree.
Hillary could lose. Nobody else could lose.
I disagree.
Anything above Hillary would win.
So but there's a lot of almost all of the candidates in the race
not above
right
Hillary.
now.
They're probably at the same level.
Exactly. So they could lose, and so that's
but they're not going to win the primary because they don't have enough charisma.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Biden could. I think he will. He will. This is what I think will probably happen.
Biden's better than Hillary.
He will. I don't know about that, but anyway,
Biden's. I don't mean a better candidate. Well, policy-wise,
I think they're well intended. I think they mean it, and it's not. I'm not. But here's the deal. Right now, you have You have this overwhelming number of employers who are paying into the healthcare plan. Why let them off the hook? All of a sudden, they don't have to pay anything. What happens then to this whole thing about profit and the rest? I mean, should be part of the compensation if you have it.
I think he's going to drop in the poll numbers. Is what I'm trying to say.
maybe, but he's got.
I think he will. So you think he will beat Bernie?
I'm not sure, man. He's pretty charismatic.
I promise you, the president has a big stick.
He's got a little bit of a magnetism to him that none of the other candidates have.
Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Here's the thing: is he's so close with Bernie right now in terms of voters.
Yeah, Bernie needs to lighten up a little because
Bernie is lighting up, but also
no, I'm saying every time he goes on TV, he's just like an angry, screaming old man, and Joe Biden is like a smiley Uncle Joe.
But he says dumb shit constantly, and people are not okay with it.
Like what?
It's a large, very identifiable Somali community. There's an awful lot who are driving cabs, and are friends of mine, for real. I'm not being solicitous. I'm being serious.
Only 15 Somalis live in the entire state, according to the Census Bureau. And Wilmington cab drivers told CNN they knew of no Somalis driving taxis.
Like his China comment was fucking dumb as fuck.
Yeah, well, we're particularly sensitive to that. I'm not saying I support his candidacy. I'm talking about whether he can win. I support Bernie. I support Bernie.
That if I wanted to be president of the United States, I could be vice president.
I know you do. But here's the thing. I think he has this quality with Hillary is once he gets into debates, which is why he's pretty reserved right now. He's not doing a lot. He's like kind of keeping out of the public spotlight.
Yeah.
The more he talks, just like Hillary, the more he debates, the less people like him.
Really?
Because they find out his real policies. That's exactly how Hillary was.
Yeah, but I've never seen Joe debate because he hasn't been on a debate stage probably since 2007.
He's also run for president twice and not won a single state, which is ridiculous. Like he's not
in the
popular.
primaries.
Like, yeah, in the primaries. He's never been the candidate for presidency on the Democratic side.
Yeah, I don't know what to say, man.
Bernie has fucking experience doing that. This is my theory, at least, is the longer he goes on and once we have the debates, this is obviously there are caveats to this because there's so many people in the Democratic race right now. There's like 22 fucking people in the race right now. If they put Bernie and Biden in the same field when it comes to debates, which may or may not happen, Bernie will make him look like the child he is. And I think that his poll numbers will start to tank because he doesn't really have anything to say. He already said, I don't have any sympathy for millennials.
And so the younger generation now tells me how tough things are. Give me a break. No. I have no empathy for it. Give me a break.
China's great. They're not going to eat our lunch.
China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man.
They're not bad folks.
They're not bad folks.
Which is the fucking dumbest thing I've ever heard. He doesn't have any policy. What does he push for? Can you name one policy that he's pushed?
Yeah,
and
free massages for all women.
I was ready to prostitute myself in the manner in which I talk about it.
Exactly. And free massages for all women is good.
Women over
but
the age of
you
2.
have to read the subtext is that they all come from Joe Biden, and when women hear about that, they are going to be like, "Nah, I don't really want a massage from handsy Uncle Joseph. He's kind of gross, you know. He's got bigger hands than Trump, so it might be comfortable because they'll be strong.
Deal?
It's not going to feel good because he's going to be breathing in my ear. I don't like that. It's not good, you know.
Or we just stop the Joe hate and everyone just take a massage and stop complaining, okay?
Fuck Joe Biden.
No, it's
All
just a
right, what
massage,
else?
Jordan. It's not fucking. He doesn't give those away
Guillotine
for
Joe
free.
Biden. Don't guillotine Joe Biden. Just kidding. All right,
So I don't know. Let's see how the debates go. I'm very curious.
We'll see. I'm so excited for the debates, man.
I
As long as
downloaded
they don't
all of
fucking-
them off YouTube and I listened to them all last time. Even the Republican ones. I love campaigns. It's the time of my life.
Oh, it's good, man. It's so good. It's so good. I'm excited. A lot of people have been shitting on Elizabeth Warren recently
Who, Pocahontas?
because she
Lizzie
voted
Warden.
for
Lizzie Warden.
she voted for Trump's military bill twice and basically like kind of has been waffling on some of that stuff.
I don't know, man. We need a really strong military so we can take on China. We need as many
I would
nuclear
argue-
submarines as possible.
I would argue we should just shift some of that budget. I'm okay with having a big military budget. I think we should have a big military, but
It's got to be huge.
Huge. But I think I think it's absolutely ridiculous when people say when we literally the last military budget increase that we did last year was bigger than the cost of Medicare for all, which is cheaper than our current health care.
Yeah, we should do both, obviously.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Again, I'm good with having I think we should have a big, strong military. It should be used very intelligently.
We should
which it
accept
has
Taiwan
not
as
been.
the 51st state.
We
Constitutional
should. I don't.
referendum.
I think America. We should accept Puerto Rico as the 51st state, and we should.
Fine, accept Taiwan as a protector. Why would we accept Puerto Rico, man? What has Puerto Rico ever done for us?
Puerto
That's a
Rico is
joke.
basically a state. Yeah, exactly. Okay, all right.
No, but I mean,
Um,
but the point is that it's too small to be a state. That's the idea. But I guess Rhode Island. Well, Rhode Island was.
Rhode Island's
that
a
was one
fucking
of the first
state, bro.
13, man. Because you have like
It doesn't matter.
the U.S. Virgin Islands. You've got Guam. You've got Hawaii. I mean, they're not states. That's a joke.
If it's not accepted as a.
You didn't even catch the
If it's-
Hawaii thing.
Yeah, I got. That's why I laughed. That's why I laughed.
Guantanamo's
I
not
do
a
thi-
state. I mean, maybe it should be a state.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Guantanamo is not a state, and
You know, Guantanamo is a lot of times we only think of Guantanamo as the prison, but actually Guantanamo is a very large military base there.
yeah.
It's actually it's a whole little area that the United States carved out based on the old agreement with the old Cuban government before Fidel Castro's overthrow. And there's a fun history fact.
We got fun facts for y'all, but yeah, I mean, we got a lot of military bases all around the world. I think they should all be states. We could have like.
Well,
400
no,
or 500
Guantanamo's
states
special
right
because
now.
it's like the Cuban government doesn't particularly want us there, but we just kind of hang out because like they can't kick us out.
So fucked.
Well, I mean, do you think we should give it up? I don't.
We should close down the prison there.
I mean, that's a discussion to be had, but
I think the military base is also a discussion to be had. I don't.
what if Cuba became the 51st state?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's make Cuba part of America. I like
So,
that.
and-
They have good health care.
Yeah, but they'd have to accept the American system.
They wouldn't have to. They wouldn't have to accept the American healthcare system.
That's true. Yeah, we could
But,
let them
yeah,
have
they
their own
would-
system there. But
I mean, yeah. I mean, we've talked. There's discussion of doing Medicare for all style systems in certain states right now. So yeah, absolutely. I'd be okay with Cuba becoming a country. It might help them in some ways, and it would
you know
definitely
what?
show us
That
a
would be
lot of
really
ways.
good, man. Because if there's a few states that have Medicare for all, then I mean it'll make it a lot better, a lot easier for Congress to pass it. That's a good idea. Devolve it to the states first.
They're trying to do that. The issue I'm gonna say that is gonna come up
Yeah.
is the fact that because when you do it within a state, the population and the population is high and the economy is not necessarily high enough. Like if you did it somewhere like Colorado where you have like legalized marijuana, so you have this huge burgeoning industry that's like making so much money, which is going to dwindle the more that proliferation of legalized.
I don't think you need a pile of
cannabis
cash. The whole
progresses.
idea is that you just need to raise taxes in a commensurate amount.
It's true. So if you could get a state to do it, if you could get the
You just
numbers
need to
worked
get a
out,
really
I
liberal
agree.
state, man, like a Hawaii or like a Washington or a California. California probably would be the most difficult of those. Oregon.
But California's already pushed for it. I think Vermont has already had some bills introduced.
Maybe
so
Vermont, yeah.
it's out there. It's out there.
Yeah, I mean-
it's just about getting the wealth distribution out, because this the thing is, when you do it with state to state, you can have people run to different states basically. They can flee.
Well,
if
no,
they're,
you can do
like,
it.
a rich
Listen,
person
I
and
mean,
don't
they have
wanna
this
pay
in
more taxes.
Canada. The way it works basically is you only can get healthcare there after you've been there for 90 days. If I moved back to Canada today, I wouldn't have Canadian healthcare. I need to wait 90.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying people would go there to get healthcare. I'm saying people would flee there because they don't want to pay more taxes.
But you're paying more. You can't do that because once you leave the state, you lose your health care. So it's not like, oh yeah, I'm just going to pay less taxes. That's the same as like when I left my.
I'm talking about for rich people, like for business owners. I'm not talking about for the average person. The average person would probably love it, especially once they get into it. They would love it. They certainly would. I know that they would, because I did it with the Taiwanese healthcare system.
It's a huge. When you leave your job, I mean in America, when I left my last job in America, healthcare is actually a major consideration. So when you're talking about leaving your state, leaving your job even just because of the healthcare thing, that makes it a much bigger risk to actually leave the state. And people don't just
I'm not talking about people, though.
You're talking about...
I'm obviously talking about people, but I'm talking about, like, heads of corporations, like CEOs and stuff like that. Like, I'm talking about, like, I'm talking about rich fucking people. I'm not talking about, like, your average, like, upper middle class person.
I mean,
I'm talking about, like,
you can structure the taxes properly, but in a lot of these states that would do it, they already have fairly high state taxes. So it's not like the people are not accustomed to already paying high state taxes. So
it's fair, but I'm saying you're probably gonna have to, if you're doing it on a state level, you're gonna have to import some sort of like corporate tax increase, and so there might be states that pull out of that and move to, you know, some state with super low tax.
You say that.
I'm not saying for sure, but maybe.
I don't know, man, because I know a lot of shit in Canada, man. There were a lot of companies that basically, in a lot of cases, they were trying to decide whether to stay in Canada or the United States, and they actually stayed in Canada because they didn't have to pay their employees health insurance like they do in the United States. So sometimes it actually becomes cheaper for a company to be based in a place that has public health care because they're already fucking paying taxes, rather than.
That's a good point.
Because now, I mean, most companies will subsidize your health care to 50% or higher. So like that's a huge expense.
It's true, and that's one of my main arguments that I have with these people that are like even like CNN, MSNBC are doing these things where they're just like, well, what about, you know, these people that are going to lose their employer-based health care? And Joe Biden said the same thing. He said, I don't think we should let corporations off the hook for paying for the health care of their workers.
Well, then let the corporations pay their tax portion.
Yeah, but that's
like they do in Taiwan, man.
It's such a joke. It's such a joke thing to say. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, they should pay the taxes, but like, it's such a joke to be like, oh yeah, well, like, you know, if it's trying to pander to these people that are like, we should hold corporations accountable, where at the same time Joe Biden doesn't give a fuck. Like, he'll cut the corporate taxes. Like that's why Delaware, the state that he's based out of, is a fucking safe haven for credit card companies. That's why all of them went there, is because he's willing to cut their taxes and let them do whatever they want to just siphon money from the poorest dregs of American society. He's such a vile piece of shit. Fuck Joe Biden, man.
Only massages, Jordan. Don't be ridiculous.
I'm okay with him getting a position in the Sanders administration as masseuse. That is the only job I think that he is qualified for. Certainly with his selling out to China, he does not, and also the Ukraine to a lesser extent. He actually strong-armed Ukraine, but he sold out to China. I do not think that he I do not think that he has any qualifications to be the president. I think he should be opposed at every instance. And so should fucking all these other stupid candidates like Cory Booker and fucking Kamala and Pete Buttigieg. These people are not serious people. Bernie 2020. Let's go.
I don't know why you're so obsessed with the only white man in this race. I really...
It's true. I am obsessed with white men. It's kind of my thing, you know.
It's kind of my thing, guys. I really like white men.
I'm into white men, you know. Got a problem with it? Deal with it. I'm in Taiwan now, man. The white man can move over here and we can get married. Because Taiwan is cool as fuck, man. I'm so happy they legalized same-sex marriage. That's gave Taiwan a lot of recognition. But there were a lot of cuck media that was just like, Taiwan, a region in Asia, is the first region to legalize gay marriage.
A region
like,
in Asia,
dude. People were saying that shit. Oh, dude, we went after them. All of these like Taiwanese Twitter people were just like going after these people. Like some big people, like big media corporations, and also like Ellen. Like, shout out to Ellen DeGeneres. Like, she was like, Taiwan is the first country in Asia, and I was like, I posted on some of those, and I was like, thank you. Like, all those people that said like country, I was like, thank you so much. Like, you don't realize how much it means to people in Taiwan that you said country. Like, that's very impactful. And I would get like a lot of likes, and it was just like, then like Xinhua, like media, is like,
Taiwan, a country in southeast China, an
Country.
island in southeast China.
A country in Southeast China.
No, it's like they said like a region in southeast China, like legalized gay marriage, and everyone. Oh man, they got trolled so hard. All these people that were like, "Oh, Taiwan is a region," like we'd be like me and fellow like Taiwan Twitter people would just be like, I'm sorry, do you think Taiwan is part of China? Because if you do, you're like a fucking historical idiot. Like, you literally have no idea what you're talking about. You're such a moron.
Fucking moron.
You're fucking dumb. But, man, yeah, we went after some people. And Xinhua got, oh, man, they got ratioed so hard, and I was so happy. It was just like...
See, man, that's why they don't even compete on Twitter, because they know they're not going to win.
Oh, they'll lose every time. And this is a thing. So if I saw this, someone tweeted this, and I'm sad that I can't shout them out, but someone on Twitter basically was saying, like, if you encounter a Chinese troll and you don't know what to say, one thing you can say is, "Oh, I heard China legalized gay marriage," and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, no, like China didn't legalize gay marriage," and you'll be like, "Oh, I thought Taiwan was part of China," and they'll be like, and you can get them.
They'll be like,
it's
"No,
a good way to get them.
It's a small island in southeast China, but it's not."
They'll be like, it's a province, and they're part of China, but they're a rogue state.
Exactly.
And
that's what they do, man.
We don't, like in the 19 after World War II, the Japanese government receded Taiwan to China, even though they had no legal reason to have control over Taiwan, and Mao is the best, and
Okay.
And that's when you say,
Suck 'em up.
"Shut up, troll." Taiwan number 1, China number fucking 350 on the list of countries.
I forget. I think there were some other topics I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember.
Think about it. We gotta talk about it, bruh.
Is Abby out of the shower yet?
Of course not. What the fuck are you thinking? It takes her at least 4 hours to shower.
Oh my goodness.
So man, I've been so into my my articles that I haven't been following a lot of the stuff. I watched some of them.
Stuff, man. The whole Huawei being banned, which I mean,
we talked about Mueller.
yeah, Mueller's day off, and what else? That's basically it, man. Those are the big things popping right now.
We got a new follower on Twitter. We got a new follower on Twitter.
Got a couple new ones on Facebook too.
Oh, Facebook is dumb.
Facebook's dumb. I don't do well at Facebook, so it's stupid.
Facebook's is for squares.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Facebook, but man, Taiwan politics is hot on Facebook. I love it or hate it.
Yeah, I don't think Facebook has worked, but I think Twitter is better than Facebook.
You should share the articles that journalists.
Oh, bruh. I'll tell you one thing. I did share one of them on Twitter, and I don't know if it has any likes yet, but it is up on
Share
there.
the
I'll share
interesting policy ones, because some of that is like not. Some of them are more interesting than others. So like share the ones on like social policy and stuff.
All right, I'll do my best. You got to remind me when like the stuff goes up, because I don't ever know when that stuff goes up, because I don't check our site that much. I used to check it like every day, but
your homepage. I don't know why you're flaking out, man.
Well, the thing is, okay. So before, no, shut your mouth, shut your whore mouth, Ari. What? Basically, I have 34 tabs open right now. Before I closed, no. I'll tell you. I went to get my new ARC today. Before I had like some downtime, basically, and before I went there, or when I was there, I took my number. The 30 minutes I was waiting, I closed probably over 100 tabs on my phone, and now I'm down to 34 tabs that are open. Oh, It was so many. I bookmarked so many tabs. I was just like, all right, put this in history, put this in books, put this in movies. Like, you got to look at these later, because like it like sometimes it's just like stresses me out. It's like I have so many things I need to read.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm just like, I can't do this right now.
Can't handle this.
It's too much for me right now.
All right. Well, do you have anything else you want to talk about, like that you can think of? If not, I guess we can wrap up. I mean, we've been talking for an hour and a half ish.
Yeah. Why did you retweet this death video on Twitter?
It's important for people to see what happens in China.
What happened there?
The story, I don't know which one you're talking about, because there's like multiple ones that I've retweeted. There's an account I follow.
I really can't read this
that
fucking simplified shit. But there's just a lady like getting shoved, and then there's a picture of her like split in half in a ditch.
What? I shared that?
Yeah, you retweeted it.
Send me that. I don't know what you're talking about. I've shared people jumping off buildings, because like basically they were like calling out the Chinese, because the Chinese basically don't have any social welfare systems. There's like no social welfare systems in China. So like when people get sick, a lot of times they'll kill themselves. They'll jump off buildings. There's a video that I think I shared that was like literally, I think I talked about this on the last podcast. One of the most horrifying videos I've ever watched. It's this lady in like a white dress covered in blood, and she's just like trying to pull out her cell phone to call 911 because no one else will help her. There's just a bunch of people standing around her filming her. And I'm just like, this is the things people need to see, because like this is disgusting. Like it's in my mind the same as like police brutality videos. It's so hard to watch, but it is something that some people need to see, because they need to realize how barbaric this society is.
True.
Yeah, it's disgusting to me, and it's very hard for me to watch. And same with like the suicide videos. I retweeted one where like there was like a picture of like a person that had jumped off like a fucking ninth story with their fucking baby in China. Like, fucked up shit, man. But like, people need to realize that these are the facts on the ground, man. People need to be like, all right, this is fucked up, and I need to like pay attention to this shit, and I need to realize that I need to oppose the CCP no matter what it takes, because they are opposed to freedom, they are opposed to people, they are opposed to human rights. So, but I don't know the video that you're talking about. I don't remember sharing that.
It's not important.
I share a lot of stuff. I spend a lot of time on Twitter.
I spend very little time on Twitter. All right, man.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll
save it.
I don't know. We can talk about it more, but we'll come up with some more ideas. Maybe this weekend we do a little pot ski.
There's time.
You trying to do?
There's time.
Trying to do all right.
Saturday night.
I need to do
see
the
my
next.
neighbors. I haven't seen them in a while.
All right, that's fair. I understand that. The next technical podcast will be with my father, and I'm in talks with some other Taiwanese Twitter people about doing podcasts. So
be careful with
but the
Twitter
next
people,
one will,
man.
I know. And we'll talk about the details later. But there's a few people that like I haven't talked to yet, but that are basically like very prominent Twitter people that follow us, that Taiwan Twitter people, I should say, that they've written books, things like that. So we should be in talks with them to do a little interview. We could do a little back and forth with them, but we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, my father will be next, hopefully, and we'll see what else. I mean, I have Seth lined up again because he's got some big announcements, so we'll see where that all goes.
Sounds good.
All right, buddy. Well, we should all get some sleep. This is like one of the earliest times we've ever like stopped a podcast.
We started early. I didn't cook a big meal
Thursday night. That's true. And that was a good choice by you, because we all made it happen. And I'm gonna go eat a fat burrito after this that I'm gonna cook myself.
All right, I'm gonna cut it, man.
All right, love you, buddy, and we love you all, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to this one, and don't forget to do the social media stuff. But in any case, we will be back soon, and we'll talk to you. Bye.